Hi all, our notable game today and for the next few days will be themed actually according to the opening called the Grand Prix attack system. And my first game to add to the existing playlist on the channel will be a game by David Edward Rumens, who's now 76 years old. He was born in 1939. He was a FIDE master, or is a FIDE master rather, and he was the UK Grand Prix champion in 1976 and 1978. There was an element of secrecy around some of his games when he was using the Grand Prix attack with great effect, so much so the system came known to be named after his use, so successfully in the British Grand Prix system, the circuit of tournaments that were part of that. Now here, this is a game against Mark Ginsburg, who I have actually played in a Lloyds Masters myself. This was in 1981. David Rumens was 2-3-5-5. Mark Ginsburg 2-3-3-5. This game was highlighted by International Master Andrew Martin. There's an excellent article on a kind of refutation of the King's Gambit, with in particular emphasis on the F5 pawn sack line, which I'll give a link in the description of the video. So this is a secret game score you might not find in many databases. E4 from David, and we see Mark Ginsburg, who is now an IM, but he was an FM at the time of this game, I believe. He played the Sicilian defence, and we have here actually by David Rumens the immediate F4. Usually to go into this system, knight c3 is played more frequently. F4, and this is information from Wiki now, is the Grand Prix attack or McDonald attack, and it says basically in Wiki that it stems from a 14th match game played in London in 1834 between Alexander MacDonald and Charles Louis Mar de la Bourdonnais, and it was won by Black. According to Jeremy Silman and others, there's the Tau Gambit here, which is it's the main move in the live book, d5. It's gambiting a pawn, and this is very dangerous. And this maybe one of the main reasons why you don't want to allow the Tau Gambit. You want to play knight c3. This position here is thought to be equal. Yeah, Black is getting good pressure. If White accepts this pawn, then Black's got a great grip on the d4 square later. This position here is good pressure for Black. And there's a few games in live book here, but Black's doing fine. Look at the control of d4. This pawn is actually potentially hemming in the bishop. It's ugly positionally, White's position. So White really doesn't want to allow this Tau Gambit. So f4 is not so common as a way of going into the Grand Prix attack nowadays. But yeah, this is back in 1981. Maybe it's a little bit of bluff as well, as though something's been prepared against the Tau Gambit, or maybe David Rumens knew in advance, in the FIDE rated tournament, he knew in advance that Mark Ginsburg doesn't go into the Tau Gambit or something like that, or might not even play the Sicilian much. So he ventured f4, and we have the response actually, instead of d5, we had the response g6, just based on positional grounds. Black obviously wants to put more pressure on that key central square, maybe putting a knight to c6 later. And here actually, White doesn't even deploy the knight now. We see, in fact, a rather rare move order. Knight f3 or knight c3 would be the common moves in this position. We see bishop c4. So maybe it's useful sometimes to delay this. We have bishop g7, and again, the knight on c3 is delayed. Actually, White gets along with castling on the king side. Knight f3, knight c6, very logical play from Black. Castles, d6. And this is one of the patterns I like about this Grand Prix attack system, that often the maneuver queen to e1, pretty crude, but if you get your queen parked on h4, it's in a great spot for hitting soft spots like h7 later. And we see this move queen e1 here. For the moment, in fact, it might be the case that knight a3 is useful to knight d4. Maybe that's an option, as well as putting the bishop back to defend b3. Knight d4 wasn't actually played here. Black actually played a6. This is an interesting question about c2 here, which one has to sometimes consider. Let's actually check that. If Black actually put a knight on d4, Engine assessment actually is not knight a3. That's a little bit inferior, it indicates. Just taking the knight here. Because I think actually we can actually use c3 in any case. So say knight f6, we've got c3 winning the bishop. And if the bishop goes back, yeah, I think we can either play knight c4 or d4 and carry on as normal. So anyway, black didn't play knight d4. Maybe just white just takes that. Black played a6. And we have here d3, knight f6, and now knight c3. So we have here a Grand Prix attack system with bishop c4. Note that there's also another way of playing it. If black hasn't deprived the bishop b5 system, bishop b5 is also popular and often inflicting double pawns. But here we have clearly a bishop c4 system. Knight d4. And now the c2 pawn is attacked. White is willing to give up that light square bishop here. We have e6, so defending that c2 pawn, e6. But now aggressive move using that d4 aggressive rook, f1, trying to blast this diagonal. I know the bishop might not be lasting much longer, but it also is opening up this bishop as well. And we have these great piece coordination possibilities like queen h4, bishop g5. The f file could be dangerous. Black maybe is a little bit concerned here. He doesn't routinely castle. It would seem white's got a kind of ready-made attacking system if black castles. You can imagine bishop g5 pinning, then queen h4 later. It's dangerous. It becomes dangerous because then there's bishop h6, knight g5, f takes, rook takes as a stereotypical pattern to exchange off the bishop, play rook takes f6 and mate on h7. That's the kind of stereotypical plan that's the undertone to this system. So we have here queen e7, black a bit cautious. We have now f takes e. So opening up and committing that pawn, you might think it might be useful to leave it there, that tension, but that was played. We have bishop takes e6. On f takes, it might be an idea for white to consider breaking out with e5. That might actually be a possibility to break up black's pawn structure as well. Possible. But yeah, we have bishop takes e6. And this does leave a potentially weak d pawn. And black clearly wasn't concerned. He had an idea here. Knight takes d4. C takes d4. Knight e2. And black might have thought, well, at least he's getting c-file pressure potentially. That is a backward pawn technically on the same element file, and it could be a problem. But here, what about the d pawn? Black plays here knight d7, protecting the d pawn. But now we have queen f2, so putting more pressure on d4. And yeah, how does black actually defend d4 in this position? It's very, very tricky. Black tried a tactical idea, a very tactical idea. Let's just wonder just if there's a basic way of defending queen f6. It looks bad because queen g3, actually we're hitting the queen, and also d6 here. In this position, it looks as though white's getting an upper hand, threatening there. And now white can safely take on d4, and there isn't much compensation for black in this position. The bishop's also been blocked in as well. So yeah, it seems as though white's better here just because of the d4 pawn issue, but black's tactical move knight e5 would seem to stop knight takes d4. So this is a very important tactical exercise of this game now. Is it safe? As they say in the Marathon Man quotation, is it safe? There's a great film with Dustin Hoffman. Is it safe to take the pawn on d4? Knight takes d4. If I give you 5 seconds to pause the video here, would you play knight takes d4 or not? So 5 seconds starting from now for you to pause the video and analyze the position. Okay, David Rumens. Senses the king's still in the centre, right? And when the king's in the centre, you can consider the position special. Special case position. The opponent's king in the centre. So don't rule out anything which looks completely mad and ludicrous and outrageously bad. Not until you do an exhaustive calculations of forcing moves, etc. Knight takes d4 was played. You might think, what? Doesn't knight g4 refute it? It's hitting the queen, it's hitting d4. Where is the queen going to protect the knight? Whoops, isn't that just losing a piece? Can you see what white plays in this position? If I give you 5 seconds, starting from now, white's play. Yep, knight takes e6. Black has very limited options here. If he wants to bail out of winning the queen, then this isn't particularly good. There's queen b6 in this position, and not only the king cannot castle now at queenside or kingside, bishop a4 check is on the cards, as well as bishop g5 potentially, as well as a prelude to that. That's too dangerous for the black king. So all in now, for a penny, for a pound. We have knight takes f2 being played, but now knight takes g7 check, and the king has some possibilities. You might think it might want to go to f8 to hit the knight. It actually goes to d7, and of course it's 3 pieces for the queen on king d7. Now king f8, unfortunately there's a very strong move in this variation. This wasn't played. The king actually went to d7 in the game. Can you see what white can play here? White doesn't have to play rook takes knight in this position, but has another strong move instead. Can you see? Yep, bishop h6. It's threatening a discovered check to win the queen. So white would end up material up here. If knight g4 saving the knight, knight f5 check wins the queen back. Knight takes, knight takes. It's a piece up. Or not. No, it's not a piece up, pardon me. It's just better for white in this position. Let me check if white can do better actually. I assume knight f5 check here in this line. Let's just 100% check this. Knight takes. This is just better for white, this position. White's got that ready-made f-file pressure and can just double rooks here. Yeah, this position has got a nice center. This is clearly better for white. So yeah, we have here king d7. I mean, it's given as the best move technically, but it's just losing. It's just a losing idea. Yeah, king f8 and knight g4. It's still losing. So king d7 was played. And we have 3 pieces for the queen, with the immediate threat of rook takes f7. Black defends that because that would be pinning the queen as well. Black defends rook takes f7 with rook a f8. And we have here the move bishop d2, which threatens things like bishop c3 to support the knight very comfortably. The knight, if the f pawn moves, we've always got e6 for the knight. Remember, this bishop still, it's covering key squares. Black played king c8. We have rook a f1, and it's just a very bad position for black. Black decided actually to resign here on move 20. Yeah, Mark Ginsburg, who was later to be an IM, resigned this game. It's a 20 move crush. Yeah, in the Lloyds Masters of 1981. You might think, is it that hopeless? Let's have a look. Why would he resign so quickly? Let's say king here, bishop here. Now, if ever f6, we have knight e6 as mentioned, and this is just really unpleasant. This position is rook takes f6, and the rooks crash through to the 7th rank, and you can imagine b7 being a problem after that, with bishop d5 coming as well later. So forget f6. If h5 is the knight stranded, bishop d4. The bishops can centralize here. Let's imagine black just plays like this. There's rook takes f7 here, and then actually we have things like knight e6 or bishop d5 anyway crashing through. And if black didn't play h4, let's say black tried to play f5, takes. It's 3 pieces for the queen. You might like having the queen, but against 3 pieces this is not very nice, and you're losing the exchange here as well. Yeah, the bishop centralizing like this is targeting material. Black tries to play like this. We can take this one. Yeah, white's actually starting to win more material by force here. This one, rook takes f7, h6. Nice centralizing move. Just looking at both sides of the board. What does black play here? It's almost like a little zugzwang. If queen there's a weakness for the last move. It's a little zugzwang because knight e6. We're using the doubled rooks here. And then if the rook moves, we have rook takes f7. If takes here, we win that rook. Even more material is going down the drain. So it's almost as if black's in the zugzwang actually after bishop d4 for losing more material. This position, we centralize both bishops. What does black do now? As mentioned, if he carries on, there's rook takes f7 there. This is just really strong, so we're going to hit b7 after. The bishops coming like this would spell end of game. If there was ever any doubts about why black resigned, premature resignation on move 20, it's just clearly better for white, this position. It's going to go downhill with simple stuff, basically. So bishop coming to c3, bishop centralizing, mass centralization would follow. So what do we get from this game? Well, maybe the question should be, what do we get from David Rumens? Historically, he contributed so much to this system, it became known as the Grand Prix attack system. It's my week on Reddit for this opening system. It was actually voted in this poll I did on Reddit, and it came quite high in the poll. People have some interest in it, some intrigue about it. And modern grandmasters like Garwin Jones has written a book on it, the Bishop B5 system, that should be mentioned. It's quite a dangerous weapon of choice. Vishy Anand has used it on occasion. Check out the playlist. There's a game, a very high level game of Vishy Anand against Gelfand. And there's some other very, very interesting games on the channel recently for notable games. But I thought this is an important historical notable game from David Rumens himself. He really used this system with huge effect to win lots and lots of tournaments on the British Grand Prix tournament circuit. Becoming champion 2 years in that circuit, 1976 and 1978. Okay, comments or questions on YouTube? Thanks very much. Or Reddit. Thanks again.